Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Newscast, where I go over the top news of the last week in retro handhelds, retro gaming, and just gaming in general. This week was a very quiet news week, so there isn't a lot to go over, but there is still some stuff. So let's just jump right in and get right to it. First up, Emulator has released. And if you're sitting there scratching your head as to what Emulator is, I showed it off a few weeks ago, and it was basically the program that allowed the LED lights on the Odin 2 to match what the screen was showing for colors. And it's finally released on the Google Play Store now. It's free to try for about 10 minutes, and you can restart that apparently, but otherwise you have to pay to go forward and to have it forever. The cost on my end was about $6.49 Canadian, which is roughly about $5 US for those in that part of the world. So it's not a lot of money for something like that, and it seems like it's really cool. Some users might have some issues with the fact that it does a screen recording of some type and all of that, but take a look into it if it's something that you're interested in, and it looks pretty neat. So something that's really cool, and I'd love to see a lot more of this kind of development. Then we have CMU version 2.072 that was released, and this is the Wii U emulator for PC. Normally I wouldn't do a news story for just an update like this, but this seems to have some significant improvements for Steam Deck users, so like myself, and so I wanted everybody to know, so you should just update right away and take some benefits of those performance increases and have some fun playing some Wii U games or Wii U game. There isn't a lot there. Then, last on our emulator news, the SIG patch uploader was taken down by Nintendo through DMCA. And if you're sitting there wondering what SIG patch is, it's basically a way for users that have a hacked Nintendo Switch to play pirated content on their Nintendo Switch. And it's just a file and a group of files that are called SIG patches, and you have to keep them updated every time there's a firmware update and all that sort of thing to continue playing those pirated games. Honestly, I didn't even know this existed. SIG patches are still available. You can get them manually through any source, but this was a program that allowed it to automatically update on your Switch, so it just made it a little bit easier for you. Obviously, Nintendo took issue with it. They've been trying to go after SIG patches for a long time now and decided to just take it down, and it's no longer available. But SIG patches themselves are still available, so it's not really anything that affects the wider scheme of Nintendo hacking. I think the bigger point to note here is that Nintendo is still on a warpath, and so we should be very careful as to what's going to happen next and just keep an eye out, because it seems like they're really going after a lot of Nintendo Switch hacking and that whole scene. If my videos have been helping you, consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps my videos get better and better every week. Now let's jump into device news, and the Anbernic sale is still happening. So if you're considering any Anbernic devices, check out their website. It still has that max 13% discount and a $5 coupon, but it's better than nothing if you're looking at an Anbernic device. And it's going to be running until March 27th, so you still have a few days, but take a look, see if there's anything that interests you. Then we have our second biggest news of the week, or biggest, depending on what side of the fence you're on. But the Miyoo A30 got some news this week, and this is the horizontal candy bar Miyoo style device. Basically, from what I could tell, it seems like it might just be a Miyoo Mini Plus in a horizontal form factor. From the one picture that we have here, it looks like they have the same 4x3 screen, the D-pad and buttons as the Miyoo Mini Plus. And I'm just going by the picture and kind of zooming in and seeing what I can find, but that seems to be the case. So it's a little bit different than the Flip, where the Flip is something that's completely different than what normal Miyoos have been doing. This seems to just be a horizontal candy bar Miyoo Mini Plus, and I am all here for that because I think that's awesome. They also added a thumbstick on the left, which I don't know if they're planning to make it a little bit more powerful to be able to play some systems that could use the thumbstick. But either way, it's there and you have it available if you want it, or just ignore it if you don't. There's no word on processor, specs, or really anything else yet. We did find out some date information, and looks like it's going to be releasing in April. And then Go Game Geek came out later and said some dates that they have, and basically said that the Flip is going to be April 25th to April 21st, and the A30 is going to be April 15th to April 29th. I don't know how accurate the flip date is because that's supposed to be coming after the A30, but we'll have to see what happens in April. Honestly, I'm kind of interested in the A30 now. I was hoping that the RG35XXH would be my pocketable horizontal handheld, but it isn't really my favorite device and I'm kind of disappointed in it. But if this could come out and it still has Onion OS, it still has the great Miyoo buttons and D-pad and all of that, then I could see myself using this device in place of my Miyoo Mini Plus, honestly. Then we have the biggest news of the week, or I guess second biggest, again. The PS5 Pro got some news this week, and we found out a lot more about the specs of it and just a little bit more information overall. And I'm pretty interested in this because I do love my PS5. I wouldn't say I play it often enough, but I play it enough, and I'm the type of person that will buy a new handheld or a new console right away because I love tech. So I'm very interested to see what the PS5 Pro can do. So this all started with a few tweets that said the PS5 Pro is going to be 3 times faster. And I don't know if anybody even knew what that meant. 3 times faster in what way? Is it going to do 360 hertz? No. The actual meaning of what 3 times faster meant was it's going to be 3 times the ray tracing performance. And I don't think that's 3 times faster. That's 3 times faster in one specific segment, but not the whole thing. But then we actually got a full spec list and it was corroborated by a bunch of different websites, so we know that it's accurate or accurate enough at least. And here's the gist of it. The PS5 Pro system memory is a lot more efficient, and the bandwidth is a gain of 28%. So really good on the memory upgrade front. The CPU is identical, but there's a high CPU frequency mode on the Pro and it gives it a 10% increase. So it sounds like some sort of overclocking or just a boost in some way. But the GPU is the big one, and it sounds like there's a 45% faster rendering time and 2 to 3 times ray tracing performance, like we talked about, 33.5 teraflops. There's PSSR support, which is called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, and it's basically a form of upscaling, so similar to like a DLSS or an FSR, but for PlayStation. Then there's going to be a detachable disk drive and a 1 terabyte storage. That's a lot of words and a lot of specs, and specs put me to sleep, especially the ones that I had on screen. But the general gist of it is it sounds like it's going to be a significant upgrade over the PS5. Seems like it might be a little bit better than what we saw for the PS4 to PS4 Pro. That wasn't a huge, massive upgrade, and this seems like it might be a little bit better than that. For me, it's going to be an instant buy no matter what. Like I said before, I love the PS5. I love tech. If I can get a faster PS5, I'm all there for it. My favorite games are PS5 exclusives. I play those the most out of any game. So this is an easy purchase for me to go ahead and do it. But I'm curious, in the comments, let me know, is this on your radar at all as a gamer? And I know my audience is more retro gaming and all that sort of thing. So I don't know how much modern gaming you actually do that maybe isn't on a PC, but let me know. I'm curious if this is on your radar. Last on our device news, the Odin 2 got a new over-the-air update. And some things changed, some things went backwards, and there were some fixes. So let's talk about it. So there's a bunch here, and they're now supporting Android 13's Material U, so you can change the theme colors to whatever you want throughout the software. They're saying that there's per-game profiles for ABXY modes and analog modes, which was something that most of us were doing already through Odin tools, because you could do per-game settings and you could set the performance mode, the fan mode, the ABXY, the triggers, and everything per app. And that's awesome. And it sounds like AYN is doing the same thing through their own software now. They fixed some battery issues that I know annoyed a lot of people, where it was just reporting the wrong battery. Seems like that's fixed now. Then some other just minor bug fixes and issues that were fixed. I did notice that this actually removed the quick panel toggles for ABXY and triggers. They're no longer there. I only have access to them still because I have Odin tools installed, but it seems like AYN took them and apparently they moved them to the floating icon swipe from the right screen. Honestly, I think even with this update, it's better to just use Odin tools because you could set the performance mode, the fan mode on top of everything else. as a per app customization. So it's a little bit more involved, it's a little bit more customizable, and it just seems like it's a better app to use than what they did here, but it's still great to see them doing it. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Retroid and AOIN are really the leaders in this space when it comes to over-the-air updates, communication, and all of that sort of thing. And I really wish the other manufacturers would get on board with this and start doing the same thing. If this weekly report helps you, don't forget to like and sub, it helps the channel grow. Jumping over into game news now, and here's a big one. The Epic Game Store is going to be coming to Android and iOS at some point in 2024. Now, you could see this coming a mile away. Google and Epic have been fighting for a long time now. And the gist of it is Epic wants to release Fortnite. They don't want to pay Google's extraordinary fees to do so. I think it's 30% is Google's cut on everything. And so Epic fought it as basically being anti-consumer and all of that sort of thing. And there's just been a fight for years now. So Epic decided we're just going to release our own store now. And here it is. And in this scenario, they can avoid having to pay any sort of fees and having to give up any sort of revenue to any other store because it's their store for Fortnite and everything else. Now, they do say that their terms are going to be the same terms as on PC. And for those that don't know, it's basically an 88-12 split. So Epic gets 12 and the developer gets 88. And that's a complete difference than Google or Steam and other stores where it's a 70-30 split, where the store gets 30 and the developer gets 70. I don't know how many developers are going to move over to Epic's store just because of how big the Google Play Store is and the iOS store, but it is an option or it will be an option at some point in 2024, and we'll have to see how many people move over to it. I think the good news here is for anybody that plays Fortnite and wants to play it on mobile, it's going to get a lot easier for you to do so. So that's a good thing. But for everybody else, I don't know how much this is going to change things for you, and we'll have to see what happens. In Steam news, Valve reworked the Steam Families/Steam sharing function. It's called Steam Families now, and you can create a family of up to 5 members, and it has to be in the same country or region. You can't really share games across countries or regions. I think you could before, but either way, you can't. And they just reworked it. They made it a lot easier for you to do Steam sharing across your family members. And this is actually something that I've used a lot in the past through Sony and through Microsoft on their consoles, but I also use it on Steam with my brother to just share my library with him, and we can just play the same games. Now, you can't play the same game at the same time, but I could play one game at one point and he could play my other games, and that's how it works. But up until this point, you couldn't play an online game and then have somebody join a different game and start playing that because you get kicked out. With this Steam Families, it seems like it fixes that. So you can play online now, and a family member could just play any other game, and you're all set. Now, not every Steam game is shareable. There is a handful that aren't in my entire library, so it's not a big deal, but just be aware that there are some games that the developer just said, hey, I don't want you sharing this. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, if you're interested, there's a whole Steam Families page, there's a frequently asked questions, and there's so much more, so you can jump right in if you're interested in sharing your library. Last news of the week, and my favorite of the week, Stardew Valley 1.6 is out. And boy, is it an update. They broke their record for most concurrent players when this released. It went over 100,000 players or something like that, and it kept climbing. So that's awesome to see from a 8-year-old game now. It just killed the numbers. And this wasn't a small update either. This is a massive update. I went to the patch notes screen and I just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it kept going. This is an 8-year-old game. This is a 1.6 update. These patch notes have no business being as long as they are and no business being as detailed they are. But this all just kind of goes back to the Stardew Valley developer just being awesome. He has always been an awesome developer from day one, supporting Stardew Valley. The fact that everything's been free after the first purchase. It's just an awesome game. If you haven't played it, you should play it. I love Stardew Valley. By the way, did I miss a topic that you want to have discussed? Top comment with the words newscast topic will be featured in next week's show. That's all from me, Minneapolis.